used to be. And so of not having that ladder, of not being sympathetic to them and listening to them, because all they know is their experience, and that's hard enough. So that is another thing I'd urge you to do, is to mentor within your, not just by joining organizations, but within your own law firms and wherever you work.
Sure, can I follow up?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'll beat you to the punch. I agree with what Tanya said, but I think it's important that in mentoring women, African Americans, Hispanic students, whatever the minority happens to be, that you also make it clear, abundantly clear, that whatever it is that you're attempting to accomplish can be done despite the obstacles. The one thing I get concerned with, and obviously I'm an African American female, I don't need to point that out to you, but bottom line is, we are all going to experience discrimination in some shape, form, or fashion. It may not be based on race, it may not be based on sex, it may be based on some economic issue, it may be based on a disability, it can be based on a number of things, and a lot of times we don't even know that we're experiencing discrimination. You don't even know sometimes if you're a female associate in a law firm and the male who sits next to you is being assigned to the big case and you're not being assigned to the big case, that may or may not have anything to do with your gender. And same thing with race, whatever the case may be. But I do think it's critical for those of us who are older, as Sharonda started the panel by pointing that out, that for those of us who are a little bit older, who've practiced a little bit longer, that notwithstanding the fact that you will, at some point in your career, if you have not already, probably experience some level of discrimination or bias or prejudice based upon your gender, race, national origin, disability, whatever the case may be, that cannot and that should not hold you static, and that cannot and that should not cripple you in what you are attempting to accomplish. I mean, I look at someone like Patricia, who was a maritime attorney when no females were maritime attorneys, and is a senior partner at her own law firm. I look at someone like Donna Klein, who practically kind of put this whole healthcare law issue in Louisiana, has been managing partner with Lynch and Stafford. I look at Judge Carolyn Gill Jefferson, one of the first African-American females on the bench. I look at Judge Jeruso, one of the first women on the bench, and has been on the bench for a number of years. I look at Kitty Kimball, the first female Supreme Court justice. I look at Justice Burnett Johnson, the first everything. Pick whatever category you want, and she was first. So, I mean, I look at Mary Ellen Roy, who started with no lax, a partner at Phelps Dunbar, and in fact, my partner. So, yeah, you're going to experience roadblocks, you're going to experience difficulties, you're going to run into problems, bluntly, you're going to run into people who are a-holes. But what I don't like is trying to give this impression that, okay, yeah, woe is me. It's going to happen in life, we got to deal with it. And we got to deal with it in a way that we still accomplish the goals that we set out for ourselves to accomplish when we decided to go to law school, and we decided to go to college, and we decided to join a law firm, etc. Not saying that it's not going to be hard, but those goals can be addressed. It may just take longer, it may just take a little bit more fighting, and it may just take us being a little more vocal and having collective discussions like this to figure out ways to address some of those issues. So as you said, from a generational standpoint, Tanya, is not necessarily as bad for the current generation as it was when Patricia started, or I started, or Donna Klein started, or whatever the case may be.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Kim. Kim and I did a panel similar to this one a couple months ago in Shreveport, and someone in that audience had a very interesting comment. They said, if you're not at the table, then you're on the plate.
It was a great line.
Great line.
It was a great line.
And also, let me just say that if you have comments or anything, please feel free to go to the microphone and make those comments as we're going along. But in that regard, in light of that great line, I'd like Patricia to sort of address women's issues and sort of the unique perspective that women have in leadership roles in the Bar Association, community development groups, that kind of thing. Often I think that we have a unique perspective that men just don't seem to understand, and I'd like you to address that.
I'll go back just really quickly, to go back to this age difference. I have done admiralty for going on 27 years now, and when I clerked at a law firm year. They seemed to like me. They asked me back the second summer, and then an offer was a long time coming. And finally, I just asked, what is going on? And I was told, well, we're trying to find out what to do with you. We can't figure out what to do with you because the head of the Admiralty Department did not believe that women should even be in the courtroom, and most certainly they should not practice admiralty. I'm not very subtle now. I wasn't at all then. I just read a one-sentence letter saying, I do not wish to be considered for a position in your law firm, thank you. And that was it. And thank goodness I found somebody who just needed a body to go handle cases, and so they let me do what I wanted to. But, it was hard back then, which doesn't mean it's not hard now. It has changed, and I think that one thing that's happened just with the legal profession in general, with the numbers of women that are on the scene now, you do have a lot of camaraderie from the other women lawyers. And so there's somebody to talk about it, and I'm not talking about one, and I don't think there's anybody out there who's like, oh, poor me. You all are achievers. And, but everybody needs help and wants camaraderie. And there's something about women in the profession and just our outlook. I think that we are consensus builders. I think that even those of us who are litigators and very tough litigators, you're not going to go on and try cases if you're not hard in certain ways. But the women's perspective is different. They've done studies. And this is something I tell my young women lawyers. I don't hire on the basis of gender. It just so happens these were the best people who came along. But there's a tendency for women to get in and say, oh, well, I may be wrong, but I think that, or this may not be a good idea. And I'm like, don't you ever say that to me. You don't think it's a good idea, don't say it. And if you think it's a good idea and I don't, I promise I will tell you in the most kind, constructive way I can, but you're going to know it. And especially if you're with men, if you're with other male lawyers, especially if you're a litigator, you never start out that way. There's another study
Repeat that,
that
please, Patricia.
I'm sorry.
Repeat that, please. I'm serious, because I see that all the time. Repeat that, please.
Saying what?
That do not start off being self-deprecating. Do not start off from a position of inferiority or insecurity or whatever, particularly if you are in the litigation field. I think that is a critical point.
It really is. Especially if you are younger, you just, those of you, you sit out there and you look young, you look nice, and you start, frankly, even now, in somewhat of a hole. You just do. You're not given the, it's not taken for granted that you're competent. You have to show it. And there are studies that show that when men do something good, they come back and they can beat their chest. It's not really seen as bragging. It's like, haven't you heard your partners come back and say, oh man, I just killed him at trial. I just did this. I just did that. And women don't do that. I just came out of a 2-week trial. And, people come and say how to do. Well, it's nice to say, well, we did one. But you don't go around bragging on yourself. Our philosophy, I think that our tendency is to build a consensus that is good, to work with others and establish these networks both in our community and in our workplace. But at the same time, do not apologize for anything. You're smart and you're a hard worker. And my Lord, those of you out there who have kids or sick parents or whatever, and you do the double duty on top of that, you certainly owe nobody any apology.
To kind of follow up on Patricia's comments, comments like that are very helpful in terms of mentorship. And from my perspective, I've benefited from bar activities because it gives you the opportunity to meet people like Kim and like Patricia, and you learn so much from their experience. And I'd like Tanya to sort of speak to mentorship opportunities and sort of your personal benefits from being involved in the community and in bar activities.
Well, I've had the ultimate mentor because as a high school student, I decided I wanted to be Lindy Fox when I grew up.